I just wanted to take this, the time that we have together. The title of this workshop is, how's it going? What's the real skinny? And what I thought I would do is just kind of open up our conversation to get us started, just by sharing a couple of slides for you that I gave some thought to just kind of open this session up. And so let me just share. I'm doing a share screen with you now. You should be able to see my screen. So how's it really going? Welcome as part of the continuation for the Career Growth Summit. And then, really just get us started. I would want you to know also, 1 second.
So Kimo, I'm sharing screen, so I'll just forward for you.
Oh, you're sharing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to start with a big aloha. And that the way I always start everything I do is say salutations and greetings are said with the word aloha. And just by the way, I wanted to break that up for you. It's actually two syllables. It's alo and ha. And what that actually means, alo means to actually give. Ha means life. So when one says aloha, what you're really saying is, I am giving you my breath of life. And it's the warmest really form of the way to give energy or to give spirit or to give life is through this word aloha, to give life. So a very, very fond aloha to all of you. And it's a pleasure to have you join us here for the session today. More importantly, to be part of this Career Growth Summit. On to the next slide. Just wanted to also share a little bit on the next slide. On that next slide. I can't see your next slide. I can't, sorry. Yeah, people can no longer see the slide deck. So Liz, are you actually sharing the slide deck? I can share my screen if that helps.
Yeah. So can folks see it now? Can you see it now?
I can see it now, yes. So I can see it now, thank you. So just to say, this is where, it's so cool to see so many people from so many different places around the world that have joined us on the call today. I am originally from that little place there called Kaneohe, Hawaii. It's on the island of Oahu. And I'm calling in directly from Warsaw, Poland, where I spend the chunk of my time between Hawaii and also Warsaw, Poland. So again, fond greetings and aloha. To the next slide. I just really wanted to, just as we're kicking off this conversation about what's really the skinny, what's really going on, is just to share with you what I just love. I use this all the time. This is called ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese word that really, in essence, means, it means your raison d'etre. What is your purpose? What is it that why you're here on earth? And so when you think about it, it's really a quick way to think about what is it that you love to do, combined with what the world needs. That's called your mission. What the world needs and what the world will pay for is called your vocation. What the world will pay for and what you're good at is called your profession. And what you're good at with what you love to do is called your passion. Where all that intersects is really what they call the notion of purpose. So what is, in fact, your purpose? So to the next slide, I would just quickly share with you, and again, this is my humble example. I take not trying to, puff my ego in any way, shape, or form, but it's just really simple. This is something that I've given a lot of thought to, is to share really what is my purpose, my vision, my mission in life. And so if I were just to share that with you, after many, many life experiences, this is what I've come to the conclusion that my purpose on life is really to know significant and unconditional love. My aspirational vision, what I actually hope for in life, is to be a better citizen of the world. By the way, that is an acronym. Citizen of the world is an acronym for a cow, C-O-W, which I love them. They're wonderful, wonderful, beautiful animals. And then if I were to say what my mission is to how do we create greater access to learning and education, thereby really increasing the economic mobility for generations to come. So what ends up happening is if you create greater access to learning and education for that person, it just changes their whole life. And it changes their life really for the future. And then it changes the lives of generations to come. And I have seen case after case after case of this, where their whole generations, their kids, are even changed as a result of their access to learning and education that they've had. Advancing to the next slide. So when we're talking about, so how's it really going? What I thought we would do is kind of use this. I created this slide. It's taken from Kubler-Ross. You've probably seen a very similar model, but it really talks about this notion. This is called really, a curve. It's just really, this whole change curve. And it really starts with this notion of there are five distinct steps, or as part of a process dealing with any change. This is what's actually happening in our brains and in our bodies. This is what's actually happening, are these 5 steps. So what I wanted to share with you is this notion of when one is confronted, for example, a job transition or any big change for that matter, this is what's going on. And same happens if you were doing a huge, like I've had to move from one part of the country to another part of the country. I've had to move from the US, I moved to Europe, and then I moved back to Hawaii. I mean, I was moving all over. Is that I went through, many changes. And anytime I went through a big change, like moving or a job transition or the loss of a loved one, for example, or a change in a significant relationship, this is what happens to our brains and to our bodies. And so the first phase of this change is that there's some usual form of shock and denial, like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that this is happening. Furthermore, I cannot believe that this is actually happening to me. And then the next phase that usually happens is this sort of anger phase, like, oh, what do they actually think? How could they ever do this to me? And therefore, I'm now really angry about it. I get really upset about it. It really gets at me. And then there's some sort of bargaining phase that goes on intellectually, emotionally with oneself, and potentially with your organization or a significant other, like, well, is this really happening? And is there another way that we could perhaps think about this? Or is there another way we could perhaps do this? Or is there another way of format that we could structure this relationship? So after that, then there's usually, if that doesn't work, in some cases it does work, and in some cases it doesn't work. And in some cases where it doesn't work, there's usually some form of sadness or really sense of loss or that sense of grief, which would be a sense of depression. And then what starts to happen after a period of time, one needs to then think about moving forward. And that is really having, again, we've talked about, I know in the sessions that we've already been talking about, that sense of resilience, that sense of what I call stickiness or stick-to-itiveness or stick-to-it, persistence of then moving forward and then moving ahead of getting to some form of real acceptance of that particular challenge or that particular change or that particular loss and perhaps, again, it could be a relationship, an organization, or it could be a main change for yourself, a huge systems change, a new platform, a new computer software. We go through all of these phases, and it's very, 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 very natural, very normal, happens all the time. And what really, again, matters is how we or you deal with that. And I can just reflect on, when I left, I had a situation where, my job got eliminated, and I went through all of these exact same phases. And, I would tell you that, it wasn't easy. And I can just remember myself going through these 5 steps and, actually coming out on the other side. And I'll never forget, people always say, well, it's always better after you leave. The next opportunity that you're going to have, Kimo, is going to be better than the one that you had here. And I would like, that's never going to happen. And you know what? It really did happen. After I left that organization and moved to another organization, to the next organization, my life was so much better. The organization was so much better. It was just all an amazing transformation, and first transition and then transformation that took place, that was very excited to be part of that. And I will tell you that, being part of doing a job, doing a job search, being in transition, I'll also share with you that, it's a lot of work. I would spend every day, finding a job is really a full-time job. Finding a job is a full-time job. Having your network, and that's why this is so important to be part of this growth summit that we're doing here, is because having a network of colleagues, and now through the virtual connections that we can create, of course, there are tools to help us do that, like LinkedIn. It's just amazing how strong the network is that can help you to advance and to get the job that you want. So I can just think of the work that we've done together on this L&D Cares group that you probably heard about already. I already can think of 5 people that we have been working with that have already gotten their next opportunity, as a result of being part of this group. And people are so happy to share what it is that they're experiencing, the jobs that they're looking at, share the wealth. If you go to the L&D Cares website, you'll see all of the jobs that we have where they're getting posted. You're welcome, of course, to join that. But there's just a lot of opportunity that comes through the networking connections. And that's why this summit, this growth summit that we're doing, I think is so critical. So I wanted to advance to the next slide are there any thoughts or reactions of really, I'd love to hear, and I'd like to promote you to the stage. So I'd like to ask you to just really say, how's it really going? By the way, Howzit is sort of a local phrase in Hawaii. Howzit is a combination of how is it going, H-O-W apostrophe S. We just converted over to how's it going? And so how's it really going? And just to engage in an open conversation with you all now. And if you were to just simply share, you can either raise your hand, or to gesture, or to write into the chat. You could just say, I'd like to be promoted to the stage. Again, it's a figural stage. It's not a scary place at all. We're all friends here. That you could be promoted, if you will, elevated to be able to share your picture. Like I'm seeing Tina right now. So Tina, I'm going to go over to you to say, how's it really going?
Aloha. Yes. So like many, I'm juggling schooling at home while working and figuring out how to reframe my purpose. So there's a lot going on. We had a great question come in from Alwyn Watson in the chat that I just wanted to pose to you, and that is around the change process that you talked about. Is the process different for positive changes?
Yeah, so I think they're all sort of, if I was looking at how they would oscillate, I think they're all part of that. The same process happens whether one is experiencing. So for example, if a positive change, like I can tell you, like one of the most positive things that's ever happened to me in my life was moving to Rome. I moved from Washington, D.C. to Rome, Italy. And it was, I was like, I was salivating. I was so excited about that opportunity. And I went through that exact cycle of experience that we just talked about. I went through those 5 stages, because I would tell you, while I started out I'm like, oh, wow, well, this is really happening to me. I can't believe it's happening to me. It was all very positive, but I went through those exact same phases. And in fact, about 90 days in to that experience of living abroad, it was like hell, because the thrill of it all had actually changed. The thrill of it all, of being in Rome, it was now hard living in Rome. Buying milk, getting cheese, paying bills, paying my rent. All of that was like, it wasn't fun anymore. It was painful. And so there was actually I actually experienced kind of a little depression. And that's very, again, typical. But then you just find out, well, that's, it's not better or worse. It's just different. And so you kind of pick up this new, again, we call it a new growth curve, but you pick up a new curve and you get going from there.
I love that. And Tarek made a great comment. I don't know, Tarek, if you wanted to jump on to expand on that, but He believes that change is neutral and it's how we perceive or label it, whether positive or negative. Really good point.
I love that. You know, and
I'm gonna
again,
jump
we
off.
control, in essence, we so control, you know, we don't necessarily, there's very little in life that I actually control, but what I do control 110% of is the way I respond or react to it. So I appreciate that, Tarek, very much.
Tarek is having trouble with mic and camera. So, and
no problem. I see that.
Any other comments? Type them in the chat or questions in the Q&A.
You know, or any questions? Yeah, so I'm also thinking, like, you know, please feel free to share, like, how is your job search going? How is it being in transition? What's working well? What's not working well? What surprised you? What disappointed you? What got you excited about, you know, what you're experiencing here?
Laura, so let me make you a speaker to join us on the stage.
Okay, trying not to feel too scared, but okay, here.
Hi, there you are. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I didn't want Kimo just sitting there with dead airspace, right?
Thank you.
I think for me, the biggest changes with it is that I've been in the consulting arena for a couple decades or so. And I really thought, oh, 2020 is going to be the year that I really kind of slide back into one place, one location, one passion for a whole lot of reasons. And COVID had other ideas for me. So good and bad. I think I had a lot more individuals reach out to me for help. I had a lot of the bigger clients disappear because they were still trying to figure out what they were doing within their in-house talent, not sure how much they wanted to invest in consultants at the moment, and so on and so forth. And then opportunities to work in industries that terrified me. So to your point of change, that I was really excited about coming off a media project. I was mentioning to some folks earlier today, I hated seeing myself on camera, in pictures, on Zoom. If I could avoid a virtual classroom that actually I had to see myself in, I would do so. And now I'm happy to report that I got through that depression phase and said, hey, you know, this is what it is. This is the new reality. And I own it. I have my senior stripes. I have my expertise, and I'm excited about that. How I look to others on Zoom, et cetera, I really don't give a rat's ass. So, you know, it kind of is what it is. So overall, I'm excited about the opportunities and equally frustrated if this is going to impact, you know, some of the inequalities that we were already sort of experiencing in the United States. I can only, you know, speak to that viewpoint. Will this exacerbate it, and so on? I don't want to hog the stage here, so I hope that gave you some more to chat about, Kimo. I'm excited that we got this chance, and hope somebody else wants to jump on here.
Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
I see lots of good comments, Tina.
Yes, lots of great comments. And sounds like job hunting is hard. That's the consistent theme. Some people are just starting out on their journey. Does anyone else want to jump on and share? Michelle, thank you for sharing.
Yes, you know, I think there's this whole sense of the psychology of doing when in transition of doing a job search is really being thoughtful, is really thinking this through. But before just like, oh my God, I got to find a job. This is really a great opportunity for you to reframe, how you want to think about your life and what you want to do and how you want to live it. And that's a little scary. That can be scary. And it's sort of like Tina mentioned, of having to really think about, well, what is my purpose? Why, rather than just working a job, why would I, because you spend so much time doing a job, why shouldn't it be more than just a job when it should really be what I called in that Ikigai model, a calling, and that you're really getting to do what totally gives you, lifeblood and energy and joy. I mean, it's all, my whole thing about life in general is how do I move away from pain and move to joy? Move away from pain, whether it be jobs, geographies, relationships, move away from pain and move to joy. Yeah. And, I start every day, I start with some sort of affirmation, very positive, listening to positive things that set me in a positive frame, exercise, diet, being with loved ones. All of those things matter to me in sort of how I frame my day, and being able to find what that next opportunity may be. So it's exciting.
I'm going to take note of that. And we've got a big high five and a yes from Elizabeth. Move away from pain and toward joy. Good advice, Kimo. It's easy to go in a million different directions and the cognitive load is high right now. That's the comment from Michelle.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree to cut, I think that's why I also recommend to a lot of people that are in this process, because I do this often, is to, like, there was someone that commented earlier in the chat, I'm going to lose my job next week. And yes, that's a scary, in some ways that's kind of scary. The other thing I would want you to do is to give yourself a little break, to actually take a pause, a time out, to give yourself a break between the opportunity that you've just finished and the opportunity that you now are going to move, thinking about moving towards your next opportunity. So you actually kind of need to, what I call, kind of close it out, kind of wrap that up, put a little bow on it, so that you can then move on. Think about your relationships, what you learned from that organization. What are the relationships and the friendships? I can tell you the people that I know from a company that I worked 10 years ago to this very day are like my best friends. And that's never going to change. And they're still working for the organization. I'm gone. But our relationship, if anything, has just gotten better. So it's just, that's a wonderful thing about being part of an organization.
That's awesome. And you mentioned having a network before. Alwyn made the comment that on top of having, very few opportunities, he doesn't have much of a network. So how can we get started with things like L&D Cares to build that network?
Yeah, so this L&D Cares is just one example. And having been in a job search before, I actually created a little network. I didn't have L&D Cares, but I created a little cohort, and there were like 4 of us in a cohort. And we shared all the jobs that, I found 3 other people that were friends in college. They were also looking for a job. We shared all the jobs that we got. We shared, anyone could go for the job that we got. We also were competing in some cases against each other for the same job. That worked out just fine too. But, you have to start somewhere. So one of the things that I would think about, is the possibility to volunteer, particularly if it's something that brings you joy. So for example, I love learning. I love training. I volunteered, I'm very involved with what formerly was ASTD, is now just ATD, the Association for Talent Development. I was very involved in that community. And, I was at a chapter level. I got involved in a chapter. I ended up being the head of programs for that chapter. That led me to, being part of the national organization, the global organization. And, you would never believe this, but I actually became the chairman of the board for ATD, the Association for Talent Development. And it's the largest global training organization in the world. And who would have ever thought? But I started as a member in a local chapter that then kind of moved my way along. But through that network, and that network has stayed with me again. Some of my best friends to this day that are involved. In fact, in L&D Cares, Don Barron and I worked very closely together. And that network I have pulled with me, or so they pulled me to be part of that continual network. So you have to just start by building that network. Be open. It always helps to be friendly. It always helps. What really helps is to follow through. So if your word is your bond. So if you're going to say I'm going to do that, then you need to do it. You need to deliver on your words, to be part of something, to be part of this team. Like, it's so cool that, for example, Suzanne's doing this session with me, and we're all volunteering to do this, but it's that point of like, okay, Suzanne showed up, so that was great. And I'm so thankful that she did. And off we go to again, create the next best opportunity.
That's amazing. Mary actually jumped in and said, love the cohorts, great support, and you become lifelong friends. So I know we only have about a minute left, Kimo. I don't know if you wanted to say some just closing words so we have a little bit of a break before our next session.
Okay, great. My closing thoughts would just be, while this transition may have been intentional or not intentional, you have an amazing opportunity before you to how you want to think about what your next opportunity is. So with that in mind, I think if I ask you to go forward in a positive way, healthy and positive, to really create the next best opportunity for you and your opportunity, your next opportunity for a great future. Thanks again so much, Suzanne, Tina, for helping to facilitate this session with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Kimo, and thank you to everyone.